Hello! Today I quite fancied making some Eldritch horror to 3D print in a flexible filament. Tentacles seem to be something that my commenters were excited about, and who am I to stand between an audience and their tentacles? So the first step in creating this Eldritch horror is to block out the overall shape of the creature, which I'll do by creating a cylinder to define its mouth cavity, before making a subdivided cube that closely resembles a gumdrop. Once I've appropriately bulked out my gumdrop, I can start the tentacle creation process. I'll set the evil gumdrop to one side and create a cube to be the root of the tentacle. This involves extending out a face from the cube and shrinking it down to become a tip, before adding a subdivision surface modifier with added loop cuts to define the tentacle shape. I can now add some definition to the tentacle by adding additional loop cuts along the length of the mesh and scaling them inwards, which creates these indentations to give the tentacle a bit of a segmented look. Now, no one likes a rigid tentacle, so to fix this, I need a bone which I'll position within the tentacle before subdividing it up to roughly match the indentations. I'll parent the tentacle to the armature, which will allow me to move it into its new home inside the fleshy gumdrop and relieve its current rigor mortis by posing it into a more organic position. A quick duplication or 7 later, I have 8 tentacles embedded inside the flesh gumdrop. With the tentacles in place, I can get to work on sculpting the maw, which involves releasing the tentacles from their fleshy prison. I'm lazy, so to avoid extra work, I enable both radial Z symmetry and X symmetry, which allows me to dig out one tentacle and reveal them all. I continue this technique on the inside of the maw to create an anus-like sphincter effect, which quickly turns this innocent flesh gumdrop into a meat-gobbling horror. For the penultimate step, I add some pimple-like pustules on the surface of the flesh before merging all the objects into one for a final polish. With the sculpt completed, I export this to an STL so that it can be sliced and diced in Cura. I wanted to ensure the print was as squishy as possible, so I opted for a 5% infill density before chickening out at the last minute and changing it to 20%, as I have zero confidence in my ability to get the settings right on this new flexible TPU filament. I sent off to the printer and waited, and waited, and waited. After about 4 hours, the print was ready to be extracted from the printer. I went to grab my new squishy desk toy, which I was sure to get endless hours of enjoyment from, only to find that it looks like, and was as solid as a rock. Almost. At least it makes a great pen holder.